machine so it kind of sort of runs properly. Put the airbox back on, hook the throttle up for the most part the way it's supposed to be done. It's not 100% yet. It still tends to over rev a little bit, but pulling this right back to idle seems to do the job. I brought it down off the trailer, you saw in the footage, under its own steam, but we weren't able to steer with it. What appears to be going on is that the left track here, and yeah, I know that tow elastic needs some attention. The left track is driving, the right one does not appear to be. I believe this cover just lifts off of here. Kind of sort of something like that. And here are two drive transmissions. The control lever for the right transmission is moving. I thought maybe it might be disconnected. And there's our left transmission there. Well, let me put you guys in the stand, and I'm going to fire this thing up and we'll see if we can see something going on. Now this thing is a little hard to start, but that probably has something to do with the fact that I don't have the choke hooked up yet. I think I can get one going. Also, I haven't got the primer hooked up yet. Looks like it's got a new primer in it, but I don't have any of that nice little 1/8 inch or 1/16 inch fuel line that is needed for the primer. And of course it's a holiday today, so everything's closed. Let's see if this thing will fire up. I don't know if you guys could see much. Right here is a shaft, and that shaft was spinning, but there didn't appear to be any output going to the wheels or to the tracks. A bit of an update on the moving. At the beginning of this video, I show a quick clip of me unloading the machine from the trailer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to turn it because only the left track was turning. The right wouldn't engage. I have since figured that out. Unfortunately, I was kind of learning as I went, and I didn't have a camera on while I was doing it. That, and the weather's kind of turned here. This is middle of October when I'm recording this, and it's gotten cold out, so I wasn't running the camera while I was working on it. But we do have both tracks working now, and I am able to turn the unit. This is the muffler off of the Trackster. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a hole here, and a whole bunch of corrosion that I've excised over on this side. I've started welding in a patch here and plan on continuing on to get the rest of these holes patched up. Potentially I could find a replacement muffler. It's fairly common for guys to be replacing the old two-strokers with four-stroke engines, and of course these mufflers are then surplus to the needs. However, I'm trying to patch this thing back together for as little money as I possibly can to get it functional, do an evaluation, see how good of a machine it's going to be, and then decide the path I'm going to take after that. So welding some patches here I think is a good first step. Definitely there's a hole rusted out around this this fitting, but what I'm finding is you get back from the hole not very far, and generally we have decent steel to weld to. This patch has welded in quite nice. Had to go a little bit of an extension here that I wasn't aware of, and a few little holes that I had to fill with some weld, but nothing too terribly out there. It's coming together fairly well. Once I get this put back together and go to put it back in the machine, I'll bring you guys along and I'll point the camera at what I was working on. One of the important things about two-stroke engines is the exhaust can is almost as important as the carburetor. It helps scavenge the burnt gases out of the cylinder, and if you don't have a functional exhaust, your cylinder's not going to run well. And definitely the right cylinder, this is the right muffler. The right cylinder wasn't running very well on the Trackster. Put my hand on the top of the exhaust after running it for a few minutes, and there was no warmth at all. So I'm pretty sure having this exhaust chamber blown out like it was causing us some issues. Well, let's get this put back together, and then we'll be able to proceed with some reassembly. The pedestal bandsaw that I made a few weeks ago is working great for making these patches. That's got the top all welded up, relatively airtight, and I can still hear some broken pieces inside, but hopefully they're not too critical. Now we need to decide what we're going to do with the bottom edge here. It's not broken through anywhere, I don't think. It definitely is funky. We'll just leave that well enough alone. There still seems to be some reasonably stout metal there. Now, this is basically ready to go back into the unit. The problem that we have is that this exhaust gasket here came off just fine, no problem at all. But this one here, it's still halfway attached to that flange. I don't have another one. So I think what I'm going to have to do is figure out how to trace that and then go to a couple of local industrial automotive type places and see if they have any kind of exhaust gasket that will kind of sort of fit. Finding gasket material, or finding a replacement gasket for this, was a little bit more of an adventure than I expected it was going to be. All of my local, we'll call them purveyor of parts, didn't have anything that was remotely close. I ended up having to run down to the US and go to O'Reilly's Auto Parts and pick up this exhaust gasket material, and this is probably going to work out really well. I should have bought two, because then I would have been able to use it to replace the this kind of almost tar paper wrap that went around the can originally. But I do have some header wrap coming. We'll do the header wrap around the can and then reinstall the heat shield outside of that. So I think we'll grab some tin snips, hack off a piece approximately the right size, and then we can start laying it out and manufacture. I think we'll replace this gasket and this gasket while we have the material. I've got a nice hole punch here. We'll mark approximately where we need the bolt holes. I think I'm just going to put one of these through the center, and then we'll take the tin snips and cut out so that we're gasket matched to the flange. Got a fairly heavy piece of angle iron. We use that as a backer, and we have a good sized little hammer. They line up very well with the bolt holes. That feels pretty good. I think we'll call that a success. Basically what this is standard, gasket paper on the back side, and then it's got an aluminum on the front, and the aluminum uses to resist the heat, so that this gasket paper is relatively resistant to any kind of heat damage. Tap down the sharp edges, and there is an exhaust gasket. I'm going to repeat this, make another one of these gaskets, because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have to peel the other muffler out and do some welding on it as well. And I also am going to replace this smaller gasket. This gasket came off in one piece and could be reused if it had to be, but we've got gasket material here. We may as well replace it while we're at it. Let me get that done off camera, and I'll bring you guys back when I am ready to start reassembling things here. It's all wrapped in the muffler tape. It's then coated in aluminum foil tape, and then we have the heat shield on around the outside. I've got several of these nice big clamps. I'll put them on with the impact gun. I got a bit of the belly pan cleaned up. And I got some brand shiny new bolts and some nice shiny new lock nuts to go with them. That's got it reattached. Now, I picked up a couple spark plugs. I think they're the right ones to go in here. We'll grab a spark plug wrench and we'll pop those out of there. Well, these are J4Js and these are J4Cs. I think they'll work. We'll put this on the other side. We're basically ready to fire this thing up. However, one thing that I want to do is get the priming system working. The previous owner put a brand new primer in, but he didn't hook anything up. And with the difficulty I'm having getting this thing to fire off, having to crank it over forever and ever and ever, I'm thinking getting the primer working probably would be a good benefit. I did buy some fuel line. Let me go grab that and we'll get that hooked up. I don't know how well this shows up for you guys, but this is the bottom of the primer here. There's 2 ports. We've got our little fuel line here. Put it on the barb fitting. We're going to make a temporary connection. This is a OMC outboard fuel tank fitting, and I'm going to put it in place of the this cutoff hose that I'm using. We'll hook it up with a conventional fuel hose to the outboard tank I've been using. But at the same time, I want to get this T installed for the primer line. One last temporary fuel system thing that we need to deal with is the return line from the carburetor. Totes and carburetors work with an overflow system, so that they're always sending fuel back to the fuel tank. And right now, this is the return line, and it's pretty crispy, and it just runs to a bucket. And I think we're going to continue to run it to the bucket, just for temporary purposes. Let's get this replaced so that it's not leaking fuel all down the firewall while we're working on it. Okay, we've got the turn line stuck in the Cruisaday. We've got the supply line hooked up. Let's see how easy it is to start. Oh, choke is open, so let's open the choke. Well, we certainly have a few exhaust leaks. It isn't perfect by any means.